Imagine possessing a vocal architecture so terrifyingly perfect that it forces prime-time television judges to physically storm a live broadcast stage in a state of absolute panic. She was universally hailed by industry veterans as the undeniable heir to the legendary thrones of Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey, a 16-year-old prodigy specifically engineered to dominate the global Billboard charts for an entire generation. But almost immediately after securing one of the most fiercely contested reality television contracts in modern broadcast history, the American music industry seemingly swallowed her whole. What happens when a network discovers a once-in-a-lifetime generational talent only for the corporate record label to completely derail her trajectory before it even begins? Today, our investigative reporting team is breaking down the baffling professional disappearance of Jessica Sanchez. We are pulling back the heavy velvet curtain on the catastrophic mismanagement of her highly anticipated debut album, the toxic demographic biases hidden deep within reality television voting algorithms, and the grueling, unseen realities of attempting to survive as an independent artist after the massive corporate machine aggressively abandons you. To truly understand the massive scale of this catastrophic industry failure, we must first analyze the unprecedented cultural phenomenon that was her initial television run. When Jessica Sanchez stepped onto the stage during season 11 of American Idol, she fundamentally altered the standard expectations of a reality competition. She was not presenting herself as a nervous amateur seeking vocal coaching. She was delivering fully realized, stadium-level vocal master classes week after week. Her rendition of "I Will Always Love You" remains one of the most meticulously analyzed, technically flawless performances ever captured on live television. She possessed a terrifying level of breath control, pitch accuracy, and emotional resonance that seasoned professionals spent decades attempting to master. The media apparatus immediately launched a massive hype campaign, setting expectations so incredibly high that anything less than global superstardom would be considered a catastrophic failure. However, behind the glowing press releases and the nightly standing ovations, a highly troubling demographic trend was quietly operating behind the scenes. Despite her undeniable, world-class superiority over her peers, the television voting block was heavily skewed toward a very specific, traditional archetype, setting the stage for one of the most shocking and controversial moments in the entire history of American broadcast television. The internal mechanics of this deeply flawed voting system reached a highly volatile breaking point during the top 7 elimination round. In a moment that completely shattered the polished illusion of the competition, the television audience inexplicably failed to secure enough votes to keep her in the show. What followed was an act of sheer, unscripted desperation that highlighted just how vital she was to the credibility of the entire network. Judges Jennifer Lopez, Steven Tyler, and Randy Jackson physically interrupted the live broadcast, aggressively storming the stage before she could even finish her final elimination song to deploy the coveted judge's save. It was an unprecedented television emergency, a frantic attempt by the network executives to correct a massive demographic miscalculation by the viewing public. This dramatic rescue propelled her all the way to the grand finale, but the underlying systemic issue remained entirely unresolved. The reality television format consistently favored the casual, acoustic aesthetic of the everyman trope, a demographic reality that ultimately handed the victory to her competitor. While taking the runner-up position is rarely a career death sentence in the modern entertainment era, in this specific instance, it violently foreshadowed a massive disconnect between her undeniable raw talent and the corporate industry's fundamental inability to properly market a teenage powerhouse vocalist to the contemporary American public. The immediate aftermath of the television finale initiated one of the most baffling and destructive periods of corporate mismanagement in recent musical history. Having secured a highly lucrative major recording contract with Interscope Records, the global expectation was that the label would surround her with elite producers to craft sweeping, cinematic ballads that properly utilized her massive vocal artillery. Instead, the record label executives executed a complete, catastrophic creative pivot that entirely alienated her core television fanbase. They aggressively attempted to rebrand the 17-year-old vocal prodigy into a generic, heavily synthesized electronic dance pop artist. Her highly anticipated lead single, a club-oriented track featuring Neo, completely stripped away the emotional resonance and raw vocal power that made her a global phenomenon in the first place. The production was remarkably chaotic and painfully overproduced, literally burying a generational voice beneath layers of cheap, disposable synthetic beats and heavy vocal processing. Our industry analysts note that this is a classic, highly destructive corporate blunder that plagues reality television alumni. The label executives fundamentally misunderstood their own premium product, aggressively trying to force a classic powerhouse vocalist into the rapidly fleeting, highly saturated trend of early 2000s electronic dance music. The resulting debut album suffered from a severe and highly visible identity crisis, completely failing to resonate with the millions of viewers who had passionately supported her on television. This catastrophic executive decision effectively halted her mainstream momentum right at the exact moment when it should have been exponentially accelerating, leaving fans and critics alike completely bewildered by the sudden shift in artistic direction. Recognizing the catastrophic commercial failure of the debut album, the corporate management team attempted to salvage her mainstream relevance by executing a sudden, highly irregular pivot into network television acting. In a desperate bid to maintain her visibility and artificially inflate her cultural relevance, she was abruptly cast in a recurring guest role on the massive musical comedy series Glee. While this strategic maneuver provided a temporary injection of mainstream media attention and allowed her to showcase her incredible vocal abilities in a controlled, heavily scripted environment, it was fundamentally a strategic distraction from the devastating reality occurring behind closed doors at the record label headquarters. The highly publicized television appearances served as a glamorous smokescreen, intentionally masking the harsh reality that the recording executives had completely lost faith in their ability to successfully market her as a solo mainstream recording artist. Shortly after her television acting arc concluded, the inevitable, highly guarded industry secret finally broke to the unsuspecting public. Interscope Records quietly and unceremoniously dropped her from their prestigious artist roster. The massive corporate machine that had eagerly capitalized on her reality television fame and exploited her initial viral momentum completely washed their hands of the situation. They left a highly traumatized, exceptionally talented young artist stranded in the notoriously predatory wilderness of the independent music industry without any structural support, financial backing, or dedicated management team to help her navigate the fallout of this massive professional betrayal. For an artist who was once promised the entire world by the biggest names in the entertainment business, this abrupt dismissal was a devastating blow that forced her to completely reevaluate her entire future in the business. This brutal corporate abandonment initiated a grueling, heavily obscured chapter of her career that fundamentally tested her psychological endurance and her unyielding artistic dedication. Forced to navigate the intensely competitive and highly unforgiving music business without the massive financial backing of a major label, she had to completely rebuild her entire professional infrastructure from the absolute ground up. During this extensive period of mainstream American silence, the media narrative cruelly shifted, hastily and unfairly labeling her as just another failed reality television statistic who could not handle the pressure of the big leagues. However, the untold reality operating just beneath the surface was far more complex and strategically calculated. She aggressively pivoted her focus toward the international market, specifically cultivating a massive, intensely loyal fan base in the Philippines, a territory where true powerhouse vocalists are still deeply revered and highly commercially viable. She spent years relentlessly hustling outside the harsh, judgmental glare of the American spotlight. She independently funded her own late-night studio sessions, released independent singles without the backing of a corporate machine, and ground her way through grueling international tour schedules. This highly resilient phase of her career exposes the brutal, highly unforgiving economics of the modern streaming era. It requires a staggering level of mental fortitude to go from performing on the most watched television stage in America to fighting for independent digital streams, proving that her ultimate survival in this cutthroat industry was not going to be dictated by a wealthy record executive, but by her own unyielding, relentless hustle and sheer vocal dominance. As we analyze the current landscape of the modern entertainment industry, the complex trajectory of Jessica Sanchez stands as a powerful, permanent indictment of the corporate recording structure. In recent years, she has effectively weaponized the democratization of digital media, utilizing platforms like YouTube and TikTok to bypass the traditional industry gatekeepers entirely. Her recent viral vocal challenges and independent digital releases continue to routinely break the internet, effortlessly proving to the masses that her terrifying vocal architecture remains absolutely entirely intact and arguably more powerful than ever before. Her ongoing resurgence is a masterclass in modern digital survival, but it forces the viewing public to ask a highly uncomfortable and necessary question. How many other once-in-a-generation talents have been systematically shelved, mismanaged, and ultimately discarded by a corporate industry obsessed with fleeting algorithmic trends rather than true, undeniable artistry? Jessica Sanchez did not fail the American music industry. The American music industry spectacularly and unforgivably failed Jessica Sanchez. She stands today not as a tragic cautionary tale of reality television, but as a fiercely independent vocal titan who survived the absolute worst of the corporate entertainment machine. She weathered the storm of corporate sabotage and public scrutiny, proudly reclaiming her identity and her phenomenal voice on her own exact, uncompromised terms. She is living proof that true, undeniable talent cannot be manufactured in a boardroom, and more importantly, it cannot be permanently silenced by one. Her legacy is no longer defined by a reality show runner-up status, but by her incredible resilience and her ongoing reign as one of the most technically gifted vocalists of her generation.